Jonas Ward never thought that one ordinary morning could lead him toward a life he had never imagined. He woke before sunrise, just as he always did, with the sky still painted in soft gray and the air cool enough to feel fresh on his skin. Jonas worked as a horse trader, a job he had chosen years ago because he loved the quiet rhythm of travel and the honest work of dealing with animals. He was known among the nearby towns for his fair ways and calm nature. People trusted him, because he spoke only when he needed to and kept his word once it was given. That morning, his employer, Mr. Harland, handed him a simple task. A rancher named Cole Avery, living near the edge of Apache territory, owed money for a horse he had taken months earlier. Jonas was asked to ride out there and collect the payment. It should have been quick, easy, and straightforward. Jonas accepted without any hesitation. To him, it was just another day on the trail. He packed light. A blanket, a small bag of food, water, and a few tools. His horse, Ranger, was well-trained and dependable. Jonas stroked the horse's neck before mounting, feeling its steady strength. The sun had just begun to rise, placing a golden glow on the dusty road ahead. Jonas clicked his tongue, and Ranger started forward with a smooth walk. Jonas enjoyed long rides. They gave him time to think, breathe, and appreciate the world around him. As he traveled, the land slowly changed. The wide, open plains faded into rougher ground where tall rocks began to rise like silent watchers. He saw cactus plants spaced across the land, offering rare spots of green. The wind moved gently, brushing past him with a warm touch. It was peaceful, and Jonas felt no reason to be concerned. He had taken this trail many times and always returned without trouble. By noon, he reached a small stream and let Ranger drink while he ate a simple meal of bread and dried fruit. He sat on a rock, listening to the flowing water. It was the kind of silence that felt calming, a moment where the world stood still. Jonas enjoyed it, unaware that this quiet afternoon was the beginning of something unexpected. When he continued on, he noticed that the land around him looked unusually empty. The ranches that once stood not far from the trail had grown quiet in recent months, but he didn't think much of it. People moved around often, chasing better land or new opportunities. Still, as he approached Cole Avery's ranch, he expected at least a sign of life, smoke from a fire, footprints, or a dog barking in the distance. What he found instead was silence. The ranch looked abandoned. The wooden gate hung slightly open, moving gently with the wind. The house stood still, but not in a peaceful way. It felt empty, as if the life had been taken out of it. Jonas slowed Ranger and scanned the area carefully. He was not someone who let fear control him, but he believed in caution. It was a habit that had kept him safe for years. He rode closer and dismounted. The door was unlocked, and when he pushed it open, it made a soft creak. Inside, the furniture was still there, but dusty. A cup sat on the table, tipped slightly as though someone had once set it down in a hurry. A blanket was rolled up in a corner, and a few tools lay on the floor. It didn't look like the scene of danger. It looked more like someone had left suddenly and never returned. Jonas stepped outside again, studying the ground. There were faint tracks, but the wind and dry soil made them hard to read. He crouched to take a closer look, trying to imagine what might have happened. Perhaps Cole had gone to visit another ranch. Perhaps he had moved without telling anyone. But it didn't feel right. Even when people left, they usually took their important belongings with them. Here, everything was simply left behind. He stood still, thinking, when he felt something that made his body tighten, a sensation of being watched. It wasn't something he saw or heard. It was a quiet feeling, the kind that creeps into the back of your mind and makes you aware of every breath you take. Jonas straightened slowly. He didn't reach for anything and didn't turn in any quick motions. Instead, he lifted his chin just a little and looked toward the ridgeline above the ranch. There, standing between two tall rocks, was a figure. At first, Jonas could see only the outline. Then the figure stepped a little more into the light. and he recognized the clothing and posture. It was an Apache scout. Watching him silently, Jonas didn't move, hoping to show he meant no harm. He knew enough about the Apache people to respect their skill in reading danger. If they were watching him, it meant they had been aware of his presence long before he noticed them. Jonas held his breath for a moment, wondering what the scout would do. But before he could think further, he noticed a second figure to the right, then a third closer to the ridge. They had surrounded the area without making a sound. Jonas felt a small rush of worry, but he kept his face calm. He knew his reactions mattered. Sudden fear could be mistaken for threat. He stepped slightly away from Ranger to show he wasn't reaching for anything. The Apache scouts did not raise any weapons or show aggression. They simply observed him with sharp eyes, waiting to see what he would do. Jonas lifted his hand slowly in a polite greeting, a gesture to show peace. He had seen traders do this before when passing through native land. For a moment, no one moved. The wind brushed across the plain, carrying a soft whistle. Jonas felt as though the world had paused around him. Then, one of the scouts began walking down the slope. The man's steps were firm but calm, showing confidence and control. He stopped a short distance from Jonas, who nodded respectfully. Jonas spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully, explaining that he was only there to collect a debt from the rancher. His voice remained steady, though he wasn't sure how much the man understood. The scout didn't speak at first. He simply listened, studying Jonas with thoughtful eyes. Jonas could tell he was deciding whether Jonas was honest. He kept his hands visible and his expression open. After a long pause, the scout gestured for Jonas to follow. Jonas hesitated only for a moment. Something inside him told him that cooperation was the safest choice. He mounted Ranger and followed the scout, who moved with easy confidence, as if he knew the land better than the lines of his own hand. As they climbed the ridge, Jonas noticed how watchful the others were. Their presence was silent but strong, like shadows that moved with purpose. Jonas didn't feel threatened exactly, but he felt aware that he was in their land now, walking into a world he didn't understand. He took a deep breath, hoping he had made the right choice. What had begun as a simple task to collect a debt was now leading him down an unexpected path, and though he did not know it yet, that path would soon bring him face to face with someone who would change his life forever. Jonas followed the Apache scout up the rocky path with quiet steps, guiding Ranger carefully so the horse wouldn't slip. The afternoon sun warmed the ground, but the air stayed calm. Jonas kept his thoughts steady, reminding himself that panic could only make things harder. He didn't know where they were taking him or what they planned, but the scouts did not show anger or hostility. They simply watched him with focused eyes, as though studying each of his choices. As they reached the top of the ridge, Jonas saw the land open up into a wide valley below. It was beautiful in a way he hadn't expected. Soft grass covered the floor of the valley, with a stream gliding gently through the middle. A few tall trees stood near the water, offering cool shade. Colorful blankets and well-made shelters formed a small but organized Apache camp. Smoke from cooking fires rose lightly into the sky, carrying the smell of herbs and something warm that Jonas couldn't name. People moved around the camp in a calm and steady rhythm. Some were weaving baskets, others tending to horses, and a few children played near the water. Their laughter was soft but clear, a reminder that this place was full of life and community. Jonas felt a strange mix of nervousness and curiosity. This was a world he had never stepped into before. The scout who led him pointed toward a shaded area near the center of the camp and walked ahead. Jonas guided Ranger forward slowly, making sure to show he respected their space. As he neared the center, several Apache men stood nearby, observing him carefully. Their expressions were unreadable, not harsh, just thoughtful. Then one man stepped forward from the group. He was older, with lines on his face that came from years of wisdom rather than age alone. His eyes were deep and steady, holding the kind of authority that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Jonas knew instantly that this man was someone important, likely the chief. The chief spoke in his own language first, and though Jonas couldn't understand the words, The tone was calm. The scout who had brought him murmured a response, explaining something quickly. Jonas stood quietly, waiting for them to finish. To his surprise, a soft voice behind him said, "He is asking why you came." Jonas turned slightly and saw a young woman standing a few steps away. She appeared to be in her early 20s, dressed in beautifully woven clothing decorated with simple patterns. Her long black hair was tied neatly, and her expression was patient but curious. She held a small basket in her hands, as though she had been working before she joined the conversation. "I came looking for a rancher named Cole Avery," Jonas answered carefully. "He owes a debt for a horse he took." "I mean no harm to anyone." The woman translated his words for the chief. The chief listened, his eyes fixed on Jonas. Jonas stood tall, trying to present himself honestly. After a moment, the chief spoke again, his voice steady. "He says," the woman translated, "that you walked onto a passage that is important to our people. Many do not come here with respect. But you walked calm. You did not show fear or rush. That is why you are here, not somewhere else." Jonas nodded. He was relieved to hear the tone was neutral, not accusing. "I did not know it was a special place. If I had known, I would have taken more care." The young woman translated again, and the chief gave a short nod. Jonas felt a small breath of relief leave his chest. The woman looked at him closely. "My name is Ayanna," she said gently. "I can help you speak to my father." Her father. Jonas felt a slight shift inside. So the chief was her father. That explained her confidence, and the calm way she carried herself. Ayanna motioned for him to follow, and Jonas guided Ranger to a shaded area where the horses of the tribe were resting. A few young boys came forward, looking at Ranger with wide eyes. Jonas smiled softly and stroked Ranger's neck to show the horse was gentle. The boys approached Ranger slowly, then giggled when the horse sniffed their hands. Jonas felt the tension around him ease a little. The simple sound of children's laughter made everything feel less heavy. Ayanna brought water for Ranger and a small wooden cup of water for Jonas. He thanked her, and she smiled politely before sitting a short distance away. Jonas sat as well, keeping respectful space, unsure of what came next. She watched him quietly for a moment before asking, "Why do you do this work? Riding far? Collecting debts? Trading? Horses? It seems lonely." Jonas took a moment to think about his answer. "I like the open land. I like the quiet. And horses have always been easier for me to understand than people." One. Ayanna laughed softly, the sound light and warm. "Horses are honest," she said. "They show what they feel. People hide things." She glanced toward the camp where her father stood, speaking with a few men. "But my father says honesty is something you carry in your eyes. He says he saw that in you." Jonas felt a bit surprised. "I'm glad he thinks that. I came only to find Cole Avery. I didn't want to trouble anyone." Ayanna's expression softened. "The rancher you look for. He left this land many weeks ago. He did not tell truth to anyone around him. He crossed lines he should not cross. My people watched him because he walked without care. He left before anything more happened." Jonas absorbed her words. So, Cole Avery had caused trouble. It made sense now why the ranch was empty and why the tribe had watched Jonas so carefully. "I only needed to speak with him," Jonas said. "I didn't know he had left so suddenly." "My father knows you were looking for answers, not trouble," Ayanna replied gently. The chief approached then, and Ayanna stood respectfully. Jonas rose to his feet too. The chief spoke in a calm tone, and Ayanna translated. "He says you may stay in the camp for some time. Not as a prisoner. As a guest. He wishes to understand you, and he wishes for you to understand this place." Jonas felt both relief and uncertainty. Staying in the camp would give him safety, but it also meant stepping into a world he did not know. Still, refusing the chief's invitation would be disrespectful. He nodded. "Tell him I am grateful," Ayanna translated, and the chief gave a slow, approving nod. before returning to his people. As the sun lowered behind the hills, the camp grew softer in sound. Families sat together preparing evening meals. Ayanna guided Jonas to a comfortable place near a large tree. She spoke kindly and explained a few simple customs: how they shared food, how they welcomed guests, how they showed respect to the elders. Jonas listened carefully. He wanted to understand their ways, not just move through them blindly. Ayanna walked with him through the camp, introducing him quietly to a few women and elders. To Jonas's surprise, everyone treated him with politeness. Not trust yet, but calm acknowledgement. He noticed how Ayanna walked with confidence, how she spoke kindly to everyone, how the people listened to her with quiet respect. She was not just the chief's daughter. She was someone who carried her own strength. As night settled in and lantern-like flames lit the camp, Jonas found himself sitting beside Ayanna near the stream. The water reflected the soft glow, creating a peaceful scene. "You are different from others who come here," Ayanna said thoughtfully. "Many arrive with loud footsteps or proud words. You arrived quietly, like someone who listens before speaking." Jonas looked at the water, feeling an unexpected warmth at her words. Sometimes listening tells you more than speaking ever could. Ayanna smiled in a way that reached her eyes. "Maybe that is why my father does not worry about you." They sat together in easy silence, the calm night wrapping around them like a gentle blanket. Jonas did not know what the next days would bring. He did not know what the tribe expected from him, or how long he would stay. But one thing he felt clearly: even on that first evening, his journey had taken a turn he never planned, leading him not only into the Apache Valley, but into the path of someone whose presence already felt strangely important. Jonas woke the next morning to the soft sound of birds calling from the trees. For a moment, he forgot where he was. The gentle warmth of the sun, the quiet rustling of the wind through the leaves, and the smell of fresh earth made everything feel peaceful. Then he opened his eyes and remembered he was still in the Apache camp, a place he had entered unexpectedly, but now found strangely calming. He sat up slowly, stretching his arms. The small space the tribe had offered him to sleep was simple but comfortable. A woven blanket covered him, and he felt grateful for the kindness. When he stepped outside, he noticed the camp already awake and alive. Women were preparing food, men were tending to the horses, and children moved around laughing softly as they played simple games. Jonas felt a little unsure at first. He didn't want to be in anyone's way. But as he stood there quietly, he saw Ayanna walking toward him. She carried a small wooden bowl filled with fruit and pieces of soft bread. "You woke early," she said with a gentle smile. "I'm used to early mornings," Jonas replied. "My work always starts before the sun." Ayanna handed him the bowl. "Here, you should eat. Today will be a busy day for the camp. My father wants you to join us, so you may understand who we are." Jonas accepted the food with gratitude. "Thank you, and thank him for welcoming me," she nodded. "He sees your calm heart." Jonas didn't know exactly what that meant, but the words stayed with him. After he finished eating, Ayanna invited him to walk through the camp with her. She explained different tasks the tribe worked on each day. Some were weaving baskets, some caring for animals, and others preparing items for travel. Everything seemed organized and carried out with quiet cooperation. Jonas found himself drawn to the group working with the horses. He had always felt comfortable around animals. Horses, especially, had a way of revealing their feelings through small movements, a flick of the ear, a shift in their breath. When he approached, a few of the Apache men watched him closely. They didn't seem unfriendly, but they were cautious. Jonas understood. He was a stranger here. One of the younger warriors stepped forward. He looked to be around Jonas's age, tall and strong, with a serious expression. His name, Ayanna whispered, was Koda. Jonas could tell at once that Koda held some important place in the tribe. His presence carried quiet strength. Koda studied Jonas carefully. Jonas offered a small nod, trying to show respect. Without speaking, Koda gestured toward one of the horses that seemed nervous. Jonas recognized the behavior instantly. The horse shifted its weight, making small steps, unsure of the man beside it. Coda seemed to be waiting, almost challenging Jonas silently to approach. Jonas understood that this was a kind of test, not a harsh one, but a cautious one. He stepped toward the horse slowly, lowering his gaze slightly to show he meant no harm. He kept his movements calm. The horse breathed out, a soft, warm puff of air. Jonas extended his hand gently, letting the horse smell him. After a moment, the horse allowed him to touch its neck. Jonas stroked it slowly, whispering quietly in a soothing rhythm. He didn't say anything special, just soft sounds that horses often found calming. The animal relaxed, lowering its head slightly. Coda watched with raised eyebrows, then stepped closer. He seemed surprised. Ayanna, who stood at a distance, smiled softly. "You have good hands," Coda finally said in English, his voice steady but respectful. Jonas nodded. "I've worked with horses my whole life." Coda placed a hand on the horse's shoulder and looked directly at Jonas. "A man who is patient with animals is often patient with people too." Jonas didn't know how to respond, but he appreciated the words. It felt like the beginning of acceptance, not full trust yet, but a step toward it. Throughout the day, Jonas continued helping with the horses. He fixed a loose strap on one of the saddles and cleaned the hooves of another horse that seemed uncomfortable. Whenever he worked, some of the Apache men watched him, not in a hostile way, more like they were trying to understand him. Ayanna visited from time to time, checking on his progress. She seemed pleased to see how quickly he connected with the animals. Each time she approached, Jonas felt a strange warmth in his chest, something he couldn't explain clearly but didn't push away. At midday, Ayanna invited him to rest under the shade of a tree. She brought water and a small meal, and they ate together quietly. The air was warm, but the shade felt cool and comforting. "You learn fast," she said kindly. "My people see that." "I'm just trying to be respectful," Jonas replied. "I want your father to know he can trust me." Ayanna looked at him thoughtfully. "Trust is not given easily here, but it can be earned, and you are earning it." Jonas felt a small, unexpected sense of pride. Later in the afternoon, a small gathering took place near the center of the camp. Elders, women, and younger warriors sat in a loose circle, discussing plans for the week ahead. Jonas stood quietly behind Ayanna, listening. He didn't understand the Apache language, but he watched the way they spoke: calm voices, thoughtful gestures, respectful listening. Every person was heard. No one raised their voice. It was different from many of the towns Jonas had visited, where arguments were common. During the gathering, one of the young warriors spoke sharply while glancing at Jonas. The tone carried a hint of frustration, though no anger. Ayanna leaned in and whispered softly, "He says you are still a stranger, and worries you may not understand us." Jonas nodded. "He is right. I don't understand everything yet, but I'm trying." When Ayanna translated his simple response, a few of the elders nodded approvingly. Even the young warrior seemed surprised by Jonas's humility. After the gathering ended, Jonas walked near the stream to clear his thoughts. The water reflected the colors of the setting sun, soft pinks and oranges drifting gently over the surface. It looked peaceful, almost magical. Ayanna found him there, her footsteps quiet on the soft earth. She stood beside him and looked at the water as well. "You handled the meeting well," she said warmly. "Many would become defensive." Jonas shook his head lightly. "I can't be defensive about something true. I don't know your customs, but I want to learn." Ayanna turned to him slowly, her eyes gentle. "My father sees that in you. He said today that you carry your honesty like a small flame. Quiet, but steady." The words made something inside Jonas soften. He had never been praised like that before, not in such a thoughtful way. They walked together along the water's edge, talking about their lives. Jonas told her about the horse trader who raised him, about long trails and quiet nights under the stars. Ayanna told him about her mother, who taught her to weave and speak English, and about her role in the tribe, how she helped her father and guided the younger members. Each story brought them a little closer, without either of them realizing it fully. As the sky grew darker, They returned to the heart of the camp. Lantern-like flames lit the pathways, and the warm glow made the evening feel calm and safe. Jonas sat near the fire, and several tribe members joined him, asking simple questions through Ayana's translations: where he grew up, why he traveled so much, whether he missed home. For the first time in a long while, Jonas felt something unexpected. He felt welcomed, not completely, not fully, but enough to feel at ease. When he finally rested for the night, he lay awake for a few minutes, staring at the stars. He thought about the tribe, their calm way of life, their unity, and most of all, Ayana's kindness. He had come looking for a debt. Instead, he found a place where his quiet nature was seen not as weakness, but as strength. And though he didn't yet understand why, he sensed that something deep and life-changing was quietly beginning around him. Jonas woke on his fourth morning in the Apache camp with a feeling he couldn't easily describe. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't confusion. It was a quiet awareness, like the sense that something important was about to happen. The sun had not fully risen yet, but a soft golden glow touched the tops of the hills. Birds began to call gently, and the camp stirred slowly to life. He stepped outside, breathed in the cool morning air, and looked around. By now, the camp no longer felt unfamiliar to him. He recognized the rhythms of morning women preparing food, young boys carrying water from the stream, elders warming their hands over the fire, and the calm sounds of horses shifting in the paddock. Jonas felt strangely connected to this place, though he couldn't explain why. He had been here only a few days, yet the land felt peaceful to him, as if it accepted his presence. Ayana walked toward him with a small bowl of warm porridge. Her smile was gentle, familiar, almost comforting. Jonas felt a quiet warmth rise inside him every time he saw her. "You should eat," she said, handing him the bowl. "Thank you," he replied. "You're always taking care of me." Ayana laughed softly. "My father says a guest must be treated with kindness. Also, you work with the horses like someone who belongs. It is only fair to give you strength for the day." Jonas smiled, but he could see something thoughtful in her eyes, as though she had something more to say. Before he could ask, her father, Chief Dakota, called her name from across the camp. Ayana nodded respectfully and turned toward him. Before she walked away, she looked back at Jonas for a moment, her eyes warm but serious. "We will speak later," she said softly. Jonas watched her join her father and several elders. They spoke in quiet tones, their expressions deep and focused. The conversation lasted longer than usual. At times, the chief glanced in Jonas's direction, and so did a few of the elders. Jonas felt a sudden flutter in his stomach. Something was definitely happening, but he didn't know what. To ease his thoughts, he spent the morning helping Koda and the others tend to the horses. Koda had grown more comfortable around him in recent days, and the two men worked in quiet cooperation. Every now and then, Koda would glance at Jonas with a thoughtful expression, as though he, too, knew something Jonas did not. Around midday, Ayana returned to Jonas's side. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held a deeper emotion. "My father wants to speak with you," she said gently. Jonas felt a sudden tightness in his chest. "Is something wrong?" "No," she answered, shaking her head softly. "But it is important." She led him to a shaded area near the central fire where Chief Dakota and several elders were seated. Jonas approached respectfully and waited until the chief gestured for him to sit. The chief began speaking, his voice steady and clear. Ayana translated beside him, her tone gentle but firm. "My father says the tribe has watched you closely since the day you arrived. They have seen your patience, your calm ways, and the respect you have shown even when you were unsure. They have seen how the horses trust you, how you listen before speaking, and how your heart carries no unkindness." Jonas listened quietly, unsure of where the words were leading. Ayana continued, her voice softer now. "My father says you came here by chance, but chance sometimes brings the right people to the right place." Jonas swallowed, feeling his heartbeat quicken. Then the chief spoke a longer sentence, his eyes fixed on Jonas with deep meaning. Ayana took a slow breath before translating. He says that a woman of this tribe has spoken of you with respect. She sees honesty in you. She believes you carry a spirit that matches these lands. And in our tradition, when a woman speaks of a man in this way, it is not a small thing. Jonas felt his breath catch. Ayanna lowered her gaze for a moment, then looked up, her eyes shining softly. "That woman is me," she said quietly. The world seemed to pause around Jonas. He stared at Ayanna, his heart beating louder than the quiet breeze passing through the camp. He wasn't sure what he felt: surprise, warmth, disbelief, hope, all tangled together like threads in a woven blanket. Ayanna continued before he could speak. "I did not choose these feelings. They grew quietly, like soft rain filling a river. You have shown kindness without expecting anything. You treat my people with respect. You work with the horses as though you understand their hearts. My father sees this. The elders see this. And I see it too." The chief spoke again, and Ayanna's voice steadied as she translated. "My father says that if a woman chooses a man with a sincere heart, the tribe may welcome him if he chooses her in return. But the choice must come from truth, not from fear, not from pressure, but from the heart." Jonas sat very still. Everything around him, the trees, the soft sounds of the camp, the distant laughter of children, felt suddenly sharper, clearer. He took a slow breath before speaking. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice quiet. "I didn't expect something like this." Ayanna's expression softened. "You do not have to answer now. Take time to think. My father believes that your choice should come gently, not quickly." Chief Dakota nodded, as though confirming this, and rose to return to the camp. The elders followed him, leaving Jonas and Ayanna alone under the shade of the tall tree. Ayanna sat down quietly. Jonas sat beside her, though he kept a respectful space between them. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful, reflective. After a few moments, Jonas finally spoke. "I came here to collect a debt," he said softly. "I never thought I would find something like this." Ayanna looked at him with warmth. "Sometimes we look for one thing and find another that is far more important." Jonas gazed at the ground, thinking deeply. He had lived many years wandering from place to place, trading horses, sleeping under open skies, never staying long enough to belong anywhere. And now, here, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging, of being seen. "Ayanna," he said gently, turning toward her, "you have shown me kindness since the moment I arrived. You trusted me when I didn't expect anyone to. You helped me speak with your people, guided me, and shared your world with me. I respect you deeply." Ayanna listened with quiet hope in her eyes. Jonas continued, his voice steady. "I do not know what the future looks like, but I know one thing. I don't want to leave without knowing you more, without understanding this place more." Her eyes softened. "Is that your answer?" Jonas took a deep breath, feeling the truth settle into his heart like a steady flame. "Yes," he said. "My answer is yes." Ayanna's face brightened with a gentle smile, one of genuine warmth and quiet joy. She placed her hand over her heart, a gesture of gratitude in her people's way. Jonas mirrored it respectfully, and she nodded with approval. Later that day, the tribe gathered in a calm celebration. Not a loud one, but a meaningful one. Women wove bright ribbons into Ayanna's hair. Elders blessed the new bond with soft words. The men offered Jonas simple gifts: a blanket, a carved wooden token, and a bracelet made of smooth stones. Coda approached Jonas and placed a hand on his shoulder with respect, acknowledging his choice. When the sun dipped behind the hills, Ayanna and Jonas stood together as the warm glow wrapped the valley in soft gold. They did not need many words. Their silence spoke clearly. Jonas had come to collect a debt. Instead, he had found a home for his heart. And Ayanna had chosen him not by chance, but by seeing in him something true and steady. The days passed gently, like soft wind moving through tall grass. And life for David and Naya began to shape itself into something warm and peaceful. David often woke before sunrise. He liked to sit outside their small cabin, listening to the early morning sounds, birds calling from the bushes, horses shifting softly, and the quiet rhythm of the valley waking up. Every morning, without fail, Naya would step out with a cup of warm herbal tea. She had learned to prepare it from her grandmother, and David had grown to love its calming taste. She would sit beside him, and they would share a peaceful silence that felt like a promise of harmony. Naya's laughter grew more frequent as she became comfortable in this new chapter of her life. She spent her days gathering herbs, weaving baskets, and sometimes teaching the younger children new songs she remembered from her childhood. She moved with peaceful energy, and everyone who saw her felt it. David would watch her from a distance sometimes, amazed by how naturally she fit into every place she walked. She had a gift for bringing calm to people and a natural kindness that others trusted immediately. David worked with the horses and helped repair houses around the village. Over time, people who once looked at him with cautious eyes began to greet him with friendly smiles. He was gentle, dependable, and never tried to force his ideas onto anyone. His honesty stood out. He treated the land, the people, and their ways with respect, and people felt at ease around him. Little by little, he found a sense of belonging he had never known before. As the weeks turned into months, David and Naya's bond deepened in simple but meaningful ways. They shared stories under the evening sky, spoke about their separate pasts, and planned their shared future. Naya told him about her dreams, small dreams, like wanting a garden full of herbs, and bigger dreams, like wanting to teach younger children traditional songs so they would not be forgotten. David listened with real interest. He told her he wanted to save enough money to buy good tools and maybe one day build a larger home where they could raise a family. One evening, as the sun filled the sky with orange and gold, Naya asked David a question she had carried in her heart for days. "Do you ever miss your life before coming here?" she asked in a soft voice. David thought for a moment. He looked across the quiet valley, the horses grazing peacefully, and the smoke from nearby homes rising slowly into the air. "No," he answered honestly. "Back then, I was moving without direction. I didn't know where I was going or what I really wanted. Here, with you, I feel like I finally have a place where I belong." Naya's eyes softened, and she reached for his hand. Moments like this strengthened their connection in ways louder words never could. Despite the peace in their lives, there were still moments of uncertainty. Some elders in the village still wondered if David would remain loyal to their community over time. They didn't dislike him, but they had seen outsiders leave before, and they were careful about whom they trusted. David understood this. He didn't argue or demand acceptance. Instead, he showed respect through his actions. He helped with every community task, repairing roofs, tending the fields, carrying supplies, and assisting anyone who asked. His consistent kindness began to speak louder than any doubts. One memorable day came when a heavy storm was approaching. The villagers needed to secure the horses quickly before the weather worsened. David worked tirelessly, running from one end of the village to the other, making sure every animal was safe. Even when the winds began to rise and cold rain began to fall, he didn't stop until the job was done. That evening, several elders approached him to offer their appreciation. Their words were simple, but for David, they meant everything. "You have a good heart," one elder said. "Our community is stronger with you in it." David didn't need anything more than that. He carried their words with pride. The following months continued with gentle progress. David and Naya planted their herb garden together. They picked a spot near their home, where the sunlight stayed warm throughout the day. Naya placed each seed with care, and David built a small fence around the garden to protect it from wandering animals. Watching the small plants grow brought them both quiet joy. As their life settled into a comfortable rhythm, they found small traditions of their own. Every evening after dinner, they took a short walk to a nearby hill where the view stretched far across the valley. They sat together, talking softly or sometimes not talking at all. The silence between them was peaceful, full of gentle understanding. These walks became a treasured part of their days, a way to reconnect after whatever tasks had filled their time. One day, Naya surprised David with a simple gift. It was a small bracelet she had woven herself. made from soft strips of leather and decorated with tiny wooden beads she had carved by hand. Each bead had a small pattern cut into it, symbols of protection, harmony, and strength. David touched the bracelet with deep emotion, understanding how much care she had put into making it. "This is for you," she said quietly. "A reminder that you are part of my life, part of this place." David placed the bracelet around his wrist and promised he would never remove it, and he kept that promise. Over time, their love became a steady and reliable presence, not dependent on dramatic moments, but on the gentle ones. A shared smile, a quiet morning, a hand held when words felt unnecessary. They grew together like two trees whose roots intertwined beneath the earth, separate yet connected, strong because of each other. One warm evening, after a long community gathering full of dancing, laughter, and music, David and Naya found themselves sitting outside their home under a sky full of stars. The air was soft and cool. Fireflies drifted around them like tiny sparks of light. Naya leaned her head on David's shoulder. "I never expected my life to change like this," she whispered. "I never imagined choosing someone from outside the community. But I chose you. And every day, I feel grateful for it." David wrapped his arm around her gently. "And every day, I feel grateful that you chose me," he said with equal sincerity. "You changed my life. You gave me something I didn't know I was missing." They sat like that for a long time, feeling the quiet peace of the night settle around them. In those moments, there was no past, no doubts, no fear, only the present, steady, warm, and full of promise. As the seasons continued to change, David and Naya's story became one the community spoke of with quiet admiration. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. It showed how two people from different worlds could come together through patience, respect, and gentle understanding. Their connection was not built on rush or demand, but on shared kindness, shared work, and shared dreams. In the end, David realized that the journey he had taken to collect a simple debt had changed the direction of his life completely. He had arrived alone, uncertain, and unaware of what the future held. But he rode away not only with the unexpected companionship of a brave young woman, but with a new purpose, a new home, and a new sense of belonging. Naya had chosen him, but he had also chosen her way of life, her values, her peaceful strength. Together, they created a life filled with calm mornings, warm evenings, laughter, and hope. A life where both of them felt safe, understood, and deeply connected. It wasn't the life David had imagined when he set out on that journey, but it became the life he cherished most. Their story was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead us exactly where we were meant to go. And sometimes, when two hearts choose each other with honesty and kindness, they create something stronger than either could have found alone.